It's very similar. The present main scandal, there's 3 indictment charges being brought against Bibi, against Mr. Netanyahu. 2 are relatively minor, called a breach of public trust. I'm translating into English broadly. A breach of public trust. The most serious one concerns his relationship with the equivalent of BT, of British Telecom in Israel, which is called Bezik. Bezik has a news website, but a popular one in Israel, called Walla. Walla. And allegedly, Mr. Netanyahu, he's accused of having given assurances to the senior management of Bezik that government policies will be favorable towards Bezik if they stop their criticism or reduce their criticism of him and his government. That's the charge. Charges like this are houses of cards. There has been no real change by Walla. They still continue to attack Mr. Netanyahu all the time, and everybody knows it. These prosecutions appear to be politically manipulated, politically motivated. If they can't win democratically, they try to win judicially. They'll try to find some way or some legal mechanism to invalidate the Brexit vote or something like this. This is in line with end-time prophecy. Remember, in one of the synoptics, you'll be brought before magistrates and kings. It puts the judiciary there. I had to go to New York on Wednesday. After that, I had to go to California. In California, most people voted to preserve traditional marriage. A homosexual judge appointed by Ronald Reagan and George Bush, a Republican judge, outlawed the Democratic referendum. A judge decided that what the voters wanted is... What you are having is the judiciary replacing the legislature. The judiciary replacing the vote. A corrupt judiciary replacing democratic process. This happens in America. It happens in Britain. And it happens in Israel. That is the state of affairs. Now, notice this. These people don't care. The fact that Mr. Netanyahu is facing a national security crisis with the very real possibility of conflict on 2 fronts, both in Gaza and in Syria, and potentially with Hezbollah in Lebanon, all being orchestrated by Iran. His political opponents don't care. They don't care about the country. They just care about their own political agenda. It's the same in the United States. They don't care. They don't care what Trump is trying to deal with, Korea or whatever, or Syria. They don't care. They don't care. These are unprincipled people with no scruples, no morals, and no patriotism, no loyalty to anything but their own corrupt agenda. I believe many of them are demonized. Okay. Britain is no different. It's not simply Israel. It's a global phenomena. You're seeing the same thing. Now, why is this happening? It's happening for a very simple reason. I've said this many times. For all of their mistakes, and they made major mistakes, the Puritans knew when they asserted parliamentary democracy that in order for democracy to work, you must be governed by people who are governed by God. Paranas te quies and Chelius, our Father who art in heaven, inscribed on the parliament. The founding fathers of the United States, all of whom were British, understood the same principle. We must be governed by men who are governed by biblical God's principles, or democracy won't work. Now that you turn against belief in God and biblical morality, Judeo-Christian morality, democracy is disappearing. In Israel, you have a double hypocrisy. The people who would claim to believe in God are the religious parties, and they're more corrupt than all of them. It's a hopeless mess. The world is in the power of the wicked one. We are called to pray for those who are in power. Mr. Netanyahu, like Mr. Trump. Am I saying such men are gems? No. But in Daniel, we're told the Lord establishes kings and the Lord removes kings. God has them there for a reason. Believe me, if you didn't have these men, you'd have someone worse. Right now, Israel, like the United States, like Britain, needs strong leadership. The national security situation with the rising Iranian threat is very, very serious. Those mullahs in Iran who are demonized, it's Daniel chapter 10. If you want to know what Iran is, read Daniel 10. The principalities over Persia. Their economy is in shambles to begin with. Mr. Trump is now making a complete shipwreck of their economy. Traditionally, because of oil, they had leverage. So did the Saudi Arabians. Now, because of fracking, the United States is the biggest oil producer as well as biggest natural gas producer, producing more than Russia, producing more than Saudi Arabia. The Americans don't have to care about Venezuela anymore or what the Saudis even think, and certainly not Iran. It's a new ball game. So these mullahs are desperate. They're in a politically precarious situation to keep power. There are a lot of secularized, educated Iranians who do not want war with Israel and who do not want conflict with the West and with the United States. A lot. Desperate people do desperate things. When you're up against a nut like Khomeini in Iran trying to keep power, the only thing the Arab world and the Muslim world, the Iranians are not Arabs, the Muslim world has, is a common hatred of Israel. They have to exploit that in order to consolidate power because they're divided against themselves over the Sunni-Shia issue. That's a whole lot to do with what's happening in Syria with the Alawite and who are a Shia sect and the Sunnis and in Iraq as well. The only thing they have is this common hatred of Israel. And they're nuts. Remember, in Islam, the only assurance of salvation is to be shahadi, to die in a jihad. It's an animalistic philosophy more than a theology. Again, demonically animated, where these people love death the way civilized human beings love life. When you're up against a crazy person, you need a strong leader. Did you really want a Chamberlain or a Churchill when Hitler was bombing London and the governor in Liverpool? Who did you want in number 10? Did you want a Chamberlain or do you want a Churchill? Well, it's the same thing. Believe me, you want a Netanyahu, you don't want a Gantz. That's my view. But there are spiritual forces on back of these things. Powerful spiritual forces. Politicians are politicians. I don't trust any of them, but I pray for whoever gets elected. Because if they're not influenced by our prayers, they'll be influenced by something else. What troubles me about Mr. Netanyahu now is to politically survive, he's made an alliance with a right-wing nationalist religious party who hate Jewish believers in Jesus. They are the political and religio-political successors of something called Kach, known as the JDL, the Jewish Defense League in America, founded by a crazy rabbi from Brooklyn called Maya Kahani. Mr. Netanyahu, because he's had people leave his coalition, he's making deals with whoever he has to keep power. And these people are dangerous. This is my main concern about him right now. Now, I don't teach these things dogmatically, except that I know Daniel 10 is telling us what's happening. But it is my view and it is my impression. Yossi, מה אתה רוצה להגיד?
I'm addressing it a bit different than Yaakov. Let's look what's happening now in the surveys, if the surveys are right. So there is two main sides, right and left. Gantz is considering left, but he didn't say so exactly. As long that he is not saying what he believes, his plan is receiving power. The moment that he is starting to speak, his power becomes less and less and less. The moment that Gantz, do you know what is Gantz? Who is I'm speaking about? No. Okay. So there is Netanyahu, is the right wing, and there is another person that just now started to be a politician. He was the chief of staff in the military, and he joined together with another party. So together they make a big party. This big party is a bit more than Netanyahu party. Now it's 4 mandates more. But the party of Netanyahu can join the right-wing parties, and together, if the election was today, they could make 61 seats. 61 seats, it's what that you need in order to pass a government, to be in power. Gantz, because he's not speaking much, he has still power. I think that the moment that he will continue to speak, and through the election, near the election, his power will go less and less. Now, the problem in Israel, it's about the little parties. Because it's very close to each other, it's like a scale, the old scale. You remember the old scale that we had? A little things in one side can move the scale in that way or in that way. So the little parties, even that they are not proportional, they can demand whatever that they want, and they will receive. Why? Because if they will not receive, they will sit with the other guy. And then they will receive. So, even that they are little one, they are the one that is in actual fact decided who is going to be in power. So because of this, they can ask, I want the Ministry of Education. I want the Ministry of Interior, as we spoke yesterday about that. Because of the charge against Netanyahu, Netanyahu is losing power. A lot of the people in Israel that are voting for Gantz, they are not voting for what he is saying because they don't know what he is saying. They are voting to him because they don't want Netanyahu. This is the only agenda in a way that he has, just not Netanyahu. So they are voting to him. So this is the situation. We are waiting. As close to the election, we will know a bit more how the wind is flowing. And this is the situation in the land.
Notice what Yossi said. We don't like you, we just don't like Netanyahu. Yeah. In America, it's the never-Trumpers. It's the same thing. Yeah. It's global.
I wasn't going to ask the question, but just when you guys speaking this morning, it's just put something into my head. And as we're all aware in the UK and across Europe, anti-Semitism is on the rise. It's like a pot of porridge, it's bubbling, a little burst here, a little burst there. How is that being received back in Israel, and is the potential of a Labour government in the UK post-Brexit affecting anything in relation to our relations back in Israel? How's it being received back in Israel? This rise in anti-Semitism and the potential for a real socialist, quasi-communist government in the UK?
From what that I read in the newspaper, if Corbyn, this is his name? Yes. If Corbyn will be in power, so many Jews are going to come back to Israel. Do you know what? I'm happy.
Again, this has already happened with French Jews. It's happened because of the crime with South African Jews. It's happened with Argentinian Jews. It certainly happened with Russian and Ukrainian Jews. Who's next?
Just a comment. What I would suggest is prayer, and the evil you know is better than the one you don't know. The Israelis should be careful in voting for Gantz because this is Ehud Omar or Ehud Barak on a green snake under the green grass. If he comes and with the anti-Semitism here, and it will be very dangerous for Israel to live in a neighborhood that is Gaza. You have Lebanon, you have Syria, and then you have a weak government that's supposed to be strong against the tyrants.
Is there a question?
No, this is just,
We have to have a question.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yoshi, I read in Ephesians 2 that God's purpose in Christ was to create one new man out of two. For you in the Jewish church in Israel, how do you view the Gentile church in the West? What way can we connect, or how do you see a connection to get this one new man in Christ together?
One of our poster in the congregation, I showed it yesterday in the presentation. It's coming from Ephesians chapter 2, verse 14. That the Lord break down the wall of separation and make the two one. In Israel, there is Arabs in our neighborhood, not neighborhood in Carmiel, but in the surrounding in the Galilee. So we are trying to work together with them. They are our neighbors. They are close to us. We are trying to work together with the believers there. We have no problem to work together with those that have sort of the same viewpoint that we have. Among the Arabs, those that are very strong on replacement theology, I cannot work together with them because we are completely different. So we are not working together with them, but we are working together with those that or that they are light replacement theology, or that they are not into the replacement theology. So we are working together. With you in the outside of the land, the distance, it's factor. But we are working with different organizations and different churches outside of the land. For example, in a month's time, there is a church from Taiwan that are bringing a group to our congregation, and together we are going to have a special evening that we are going to do. We have it last year that they taught us how to play Chinese chess and how to, do you know what is yo-yo? Yeah. So how to play with Chinese yo-yo. And this kind of things, how to cook and how to make a tea and so on. So we are doing a social evening with them. This time we are going to learn how to make Chinese food. Excellent. And on Saturday we are going to have the meeting, and their pastor is going to preach. In Chinese, probably. I don't know. I don't know how we will work out all of these things. But we have relationship with other churches, other organizations around the world, because we are one in Christ Jesus. If this is answer your question? Yeah, you're there. Sort of.
Jim, come on.
This is just a question for folks in the Far East. Can you give a mention, Pastor and Jacob, about the poor and needy in Israel? How can we support?
About the poor?
Poor and needy. Is there a ministry for the poor and needy? And how can we support from the Far East?
Okay. First, there is different organization in Israel that are taking care about the needy. But each church, each congregation, they have their own needy that they are taking care of them. So in some of the case, we from the founder of the congregation are helping the needy. And for example, in our congregation, we are in the outskirts of the land. So there is more needy in our congregation that are proportional than in other parts of the land. So we are trying to help them with what that we have. When the need is big, so we are asking other kind of fund in the land to help in that things. If it's to buy a house, or if it's to help in whatever, for those that their salary, their income, it's below the poverty line, and so on.
It's a funny sort of question, but we look at the news in Israel, we see the enemy encroaching on all sides, we see what's going on down in Sderot and so on. And yet, when you Israelis come over, you're full of confidence and bounce and no trace of fear. I wonder if you'd like to describe how the Israelis are coping with fear.
Okay. So first we need to put things on the right scale, on the right measurement. What is the threat that Israel has? There is Gaza, but this is a threat to the nation? No, it's not threat. It's not a big threat. Okay, I don't want to minimize things, but if they are sending their rocket, so few people can die. The land, it's not existing threat to the land. Okay? Let's put it in proportion. Now let's look on Hezbollah. They are great. They dig the channel and so on. But are there a threat for the existence of Israel? No, they are not. Let's speak about Syria. The Syrian, also from there. This is not a threat for the existence of the land. People will die if there is a war. Yes, of course. But this is not existing threat to the land. Now there is another border, not now, a long time ago, there is another border, it's on the West Bank, in the West Bank, from the inside. And again, so they will send some suicide bomber. Again, it's not a threat for the existence of the land. The only threat for the existence of the land, it's Iran, with their missiles. But as we can see, now I'm not speaking spiritual, I'm not doing spiritualized things, okay? They will send their missiles, we have enough anti-missile things that can take it down. Yes, we are trusting our strengths as a nation. This is wrong, because we need to trust God more. But God also gave wisdom to people. And they found the Patriot, and they found the other kind of anti-missile things, and they find the Iron Dome, and so on. So when you're looking from here, you will see all the bad news. Why? Because this is what we are looking for. I've been here and I saw that it was some bombing in Gaza, so I'm opening my cell phone to see what Ynet is saying. Ynet, it's a news channel. I'm looking what he's saying. Does the night went fine or not? And when they are speaking about politics or about football or about things like that, I said, okay, no news, good news. But you are receiving only the threat that there is. This is the BBC, or this is the other things. When you are living there, it's fine. Okay?
I would like to direct my question towards Jacob, and it's to do with praying for President Trump. There are things that I need direction as how to approach this in prayer. I am aware of the fact that you've got Mike Pence, who's a valuable ally and a Christian, but I'm also aware that there have been people like Rodney Howard-Browne in the office laying hands on President Trump, and also Paula White is in the picture. And I would like your comments on this situation, please.
Politicians garner support from wherever they can get it in order to win elections. In Australia, otherwise conservative governments, friendly to Israel, like John Howard, had to befriend Hillsong. Okay?
Right.
That happens. It happens a lot of places. It even happens to a much lesser degree in Britain, but it certainly happens in Australia. It happened with Mr. Harper in Canada. It happens with Mr. Trump in the United States. They'll be friends with anybody who, broadly speaking, will support their agenda. Mr. Trump is the most Israel-friendly president in American history thus far.
Right.
And he is the most pro-life president. He wasn't a liar like Reagan, who said he was, but then it appointed a Supreme Court justice who was pro-abortion. He wasn't a liar like Reagan or Bush. He really kept his word. Okay. So in terms of moral values and in terms of support of Israel, thus far he's been the best.
Right.
Do I trust him? I'd like to, but no.
You answered my question.
There is an anxiety among a number of believers, knowledgeable believers, that his quote-unquote deal of the century, his coming peace proposal to the Middle East, will require Israel to put much biblical turf on the altar and sacrifice it for a Palestinian state. You cannot make peace with fundamentalist Islam. It is ridiculous to try to imagine you can make peace with fundamentalist Islam. It may be this. Ehud Barak offered them a state. He offered them a compromise on Jerusalem and most of the West Bank, apart from 3%, where the Jewish settlements were, like Bethel and Ariel, places like that. But in exchange for that 3%, he was willing to give them other land from Israel proper. They turned it down twice. Arafat declared a jihad. It may be, Mr. Trump is a businessman, and he negotiated. When you're a property developer in Manhattan, my native New York, you've got to be a shrewd businessman. You're dealing with construction unions controlled by the mafia. You're dealing with every kind of environmental nut job, everything. You have to be pretty shrewd. He will negotiate like a businessman, and it may be his plan. He'll make what everybody thinks is a great deal in the West, knowing that Abbas won't accept it. Or maybe even can accept it because Hamas would kill him or come to power as a result of it. It's a high-stakes game. We just don't know. What we do know is, unlike establishment Republicans, unlike the Bush dynasty, who the Saudi Arabians carried around in their back pocket, you know, or unlike Reagan, who said one thing but did the opposite, unlike people like that, he has kept his word on abortion. And he has moved the American capital, embassy, to the capital in Jerusalem, which should have been done 30 years ago. 30 years ago. They were afraid of placating, of offending the Saudi Arabians. Now, because of fracking, the Americans don't care about the Saudi Arabians as much. They don't have to worry about them, you know. So that's basically what's happening. I pray for that guy every day.
Yes, well, I try to do my best, but I'm limited in my understanding, and hence I need your input on that. Do you know somebody called Frank Almeida?
No.
He's right in next to Trump as well.
I know this, that I don't know how else to put this. In Northern Ireland, it's almost impossible to separate politics from religion, okay?
Yes.
In the United States, it's impossible to separate politics from religion. In South Africa, in the Orange Free State with the Dutch Reformed Church, it's impossible to separate politics from religion. You've got the Desmond Tutu liberation theology left ones, and you've got the Afrikaans Dutch Reformed. It's like that. These politicians have to cultivate political support from a religious base. Evangelicals oppose abortion. Therefore, you know, I'll give them what they want in order to garner their support. That's a big thing with Christians in America. Well, understandably. You do what you need to do. Like Mr. Netanyahu making a deal with Kach, with the... You do what you need to. Politics is a filthy business made mainly for filthy people. But the world is in the power of the wicked one. What are you going to do about it? Until Jesus comes and the government is on his shoulder.
Yeah. Thank you, Jacob.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a coffee break now. Thank heavens.